Hello there, and welcome to Depths of Unknown. There is a place on this planet more alien than the surface of Mars, more hostile than the vacuum of space, more completely unknown than the far side of any moon we have ever studied. It sits beneath 11 kilometers of water in the western Pacific Ocean, in a darkness so total and a pressure so extreme that the human mind cannot truly process it without deliberate concentration on what the numbers actually mean. It has been visited by humans fewer times than humans have walked on the moon. Most of the species that live in its depths have never been seen, never been catalogued, never been given a name, and the deepest point of all, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, sits at the bottom of a geological scar so profound that scientists who study it consistently describe the experience of contemplating it in a single word: humbling. This is the story of why the deepest place on Earth is also the last true frontier of biological discovery remaining on this planet. The Mariana Trench is not simply a deep part of the ocean. It is a geological structure created by one of the most powerful forces on Earth: tectonic subduction. The trench marks the boundary where the Pacific Plate is being driven beneath the Mariana Plate, diving into the Earth's mantle at several centimeters per year, dragging the seafloor above it downward into a scar of extraordinary depth, approximately 2,550 kilometers long, roughly the width of the continental United States. The Challenger Deep at its southern end reaches a maximum measured depth of 10,935 meters, nearly 11 kilometers of water above you. If you placed Mount Everest at the bottom of the Challenger Deep, its peak would still be more than 2 kilometers beneath the surface. The highest mountain on Earth, completely invisible, completely drowned with 2 kilometers of Pacific Ocean still above it. The physical conditions at the bottom of the Mariana Trench are so extreme that the numbers require patient insistence, because the first response of the human brain is simply to reject them. The pressure at Challenger Deep is approximately 1,100 times atmospheric pressure at sea level. Every square centimeter of any surface bears a load of 1,100 kilograms. The human body would experience a compressive force equivalent to 187 million kilograms pressing inward from every direction simultaneously, instantaneous and total destruction. Temperature hovers just above freezing, between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius. No photon of sunlight has ever reached this depth. No photosynthesis, no warmth, no light. Pressure that would eliminate any unprotected human in milliseconds. These are the conditions in which life not only exists, but thrives, diversifies, and remains substantially unknown to science. The first crewed descent to Challenger Deep occurred on January 23, 1960, when oceanographer Jacques Piccard and U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh descended in the bathyscaphe Trieste. The dive took nearly 5 hours. They had roughly 20 minutes of observation at the bottom before concerns about their vessel required assent. In those 20 minutes, they reported seeing a flatfish swimming on the seafloor. A fish. At 11 kilometers depth. In conditions supposed to be incompatible with complex vertebrate life, the scientific community was skeptical. Later discoveries vindicated them completely. The second crewed descent did not occur until 52 years later, in 2012, when filmmaker James Cameron descended alone in the deep-sea Challenger and spent 3 hours on the bottom. He found not a barren desert, but a world. A strange, alien, biologically active world populated by organisms that science was still in the earliest stages of understanding. Amphipods swarming in the sediment, soft-bodied creatures drifting through the water column. Microorganisms in every sample. The deepest place on Earth was alive, and more alive than anyone had predicted. The creatures of the Mariana Trench are not simply present at depth, they are extraordinary. The adaptations that life has evolved to survive here represent some of the most remarkable biological engineering that natural selection has ever produced. The hadal snailfish, Pseudoliparis swinhoii, holds the verified record for deepest fish ever recorded, filmed at 8,336 meters in 2023. Small, translucent, almost ghostly, they appear dismissible. They are the apex predators of their zone. How do they survive pressures that would destroy any other vertebrate? The answer is one of biology's most elegant solutions: trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO, a cellular stabilizer that counteracts the effect of hydrostatic pressure on proteins, preventing crushing pressure from disrupting the molecular machinery that keeps the animal alive. As depth increases, TMAO concentrations in the cells increase proportionally. The fish manufacture their own biochemical pressure suit at the molecular level, in direct biochemical response to the environment they inhabit. Evolution solving a physics problem with chemistry. It is one of the most beautiful examples of natural selection that biology has ever found. And it does not stop with TMAO. The eyes of hadal fish are tuned to detect bioluminescence, the cold light produced by deep-sea organisms, rather than sunlight, which has not touched these depths in the entire evolutionary history of the species. Their lateral line systems, which detect pressure changes in the water, are exquisitely sensitive in ways that exceed those of shallow water relatives by measurable margins. They have evolved in darkness, under pressure, for millions of generations, and every system in their biology reflects the specific demands of a world that exists nowhere else. The amphipods of the Mariana Trench represent one of the hadal zone's greatest biological success stories. These small crustaceans, relatives of the beach hoppers found in coastal sand, have colonized the deepest trenches of every ocean with remarkable success. In the Mariana Trench, amphipods of genus Hirondellea have been collected at depths exceeding 10 kilometers. They gather in massive numbers at bait drops, consuming the organic material, marine snow, that drifts down from productive surface waters thousands of meters above. Their cell membranes are richer in unsaturated fatty acids that remain fluid at low temperatures and extreme pressures where other membranes would rigidify and fail. Equally striking are the xenophibers, single-celled organisms reaching 20 centimeters in diameter, the largest known single cells on Earth, building intricate branching structures from cemented sediment particles on the trench floor, concentrating heavy metals at toxic levels, living for what appear to be extraordinary lifespans in conditions that should make complex biology impossible. A single cell, 20 centimeters across, building architecture on the floor of the deepest ocean. The biology of the hadal zone has not read the textbooks about what is and is not possible. The microbial life of the Mariana Trench is where the genuine frontier of biological discovery is most apparent. The sediment at Challenger Deep is not dead rock and clay. It is a biologically active matrix containing billions of microorganisms per cubic centimeter, conducting metabolic processes in absolute darkness under crushing pressure, without any sunlight whatsoever. Some are chemolithotrophs, deriving energy not from organic matter, but from inorganic chemical reactions. Oxidizing sulfur compounds, iron, manganese, extracting energy from chemistry itself in a process that has no analog in sunlit life. Others feed on marine snow, the constant gentle precipitation of dead organisms and biological detritus raining down from productive surface waters above. This marine snow is the primary energetic connection between the sunlit surface ocean and the dark hadal depths, and without it the deep communities would be energetically starved. With it, they support biological richness and microbial diversity that continues to surprise every research team examining new samples from the trench floor. The question of how many unknown species remain in the Mariana Trench is not speculative. It is empirical, and the empirical answer is unambiguous. A very large proportion of hadal species are completely unknown to science. Every research expedition that collects biological samples returns with new species, not occasionally, every single time. The 2023 Dossey expedition to Western Pacific hadal trenches collected over 100 species new to science in a single voyage. The sampling coverage of the Mariana Trench is so sparse relative to its actual volume and surface area that scientists openly state they have no reliable estimate of how many species remain. Undescribed. The hadal zone has been described by researchers as the most species-rich unexplored habitat on Earth, and the evidence from every expedition supports this characterization completely. Every time we look, we find something new. Every time we send a camera, a sample collector, a baited trap to those depths, it comes back with evidence of life we had not previously documented. The curve of discovery is not flattening, it is accelerating. As genomic tools become more sensitive and submersible technology becomes more capable and accessible, the rate at which the unknown becomes known is increasing year over year. But the unknown is so vast, so deep in every sense of that word, that the acceleration of discovery has not yet made a visible dent in the frontier. We are not approaching the end of hadal biodiversity research. We are still, by every honest scientific measure, very close to the beginning. The technology driving the new era of deep trench discovery is as interesting as the biology it reveals. Full ocean depth landers, autonomous instrument packages that descend under their own weight, collect samples and conduct observations, then release ballast and ascend for recovery, have transformed deep trench research. Built for a fraction of the cost of crude submersibles, deployable from standard research vessels, they have filmed hours of footage from the Challenger deep floor, revealing behavioral dynamics of hadal organisms previously completely unknown. Most transformative of all is environmental DNA analysis, eDNA, which extracts all genetic material from a water or sediment sample and compares every sequence against databases of known organisms. Sequences matching known species confirm their presence. Sequences matching nothing in the database identify unknown organisms. In hadal samples, those unknown sequences are always numerous and always significant. The organisms leaving those genetic fingerprints are real, they are present, they are metabolically active at depth. We simply have no names for them yet. They are known unknowns in the most literal possible sense. The geochemistry of the Mariana Trench adds yet another dimension of strangeness to an environment that has already exhausted most available vocabulary for extreme. The trench is a site of active serpentinization, a chemical reaction between seawater and the ultramafic rock of the subducting Pacific plate that releases hydrogen, methane, and heat, creating chemosynthetic microbial communities entirely independent of any surface input. These communities live off the planet itself, off the energy released by geological reactions as the Pacific plate continues its multi-million-year descent into the mantle. And this has implications that extend far beyond the Mariana Trench. Europa, the moon of Jupiter, has a liquid water ocean beneath its ice crust, kept liquid by tidal heating, in complete and eternal darkness, with possible hydrothermal activity at its seafloor. Enceladus, Saturn's moon, has active water geysers driven by a warm subsurface ocean containing hydrogen, silica, and organic compounds. Every organism we find in the Mariana Trench that thrives without sunlight, that derives energy from chemistry rather than photosynthesis, is an argument for life existing elsewhere in the solar system. Every chemolithotroph from the Challenger Deep is a data point in the probability that biology exists on ocean worlds orbiting other planets. The Mariana Trench also contains something that represents one of the most sobering discoveries of recent deep-sea research: significant concentrations of anthropogenic pollution. Plastic, persistent organic pollutants, heavy metals from industrial processes. These contaminants have been detected in the bodies of hadal amphipods at concentrations exceeding those found in some of the most heavily industrially polluted coastal waters on Earth. The mechanism is the same marine snow that sustains deep life. It carries microplastics and chemical contaminants from the surface, which bioaccumulate through the food chain and ultimately reach the deepest sediment. The deepest, most remote habitat on this planet is not beyond the reach of human industrial activity. This is not metaphor. It is measured, replicated, peer-reviewed scientific fact. We contaminated the bottom of the ocean without ever going there, without intending to, through the simple physics and biology of an ocean that connects everything, always from surface to floor. And yet, despite contamination, despite sparse sampling, Despite extraordinary logistical challenges, the Mariana Trench remains alive in ways that continue to astonish every scientist who studies it. The life there has survived everything. It survived the asteroid impact 66 million years ago that reset the biological history of the surface world. It survived ice ages, warm periods, mass extinctions, and every geological convulsion of the last 100 million years. The hadal zone is one of the most ancient, continuous, undisturbed biological environments on the planet. The evolutionary lineages that populate it are old in ways that surface life lineages simply are not, because the hadal environment has remained stable, cold, dark, pressurized, chemically consistent, for geological timescales that make all of human history look like a rounding error in the record of life on Earth. What remains to be discovered in the Mariana Trench is not a small residual collection of minor species for future expeditions to quietly catalogue and complete. The unknown life of the hadal zone is the majority of the hadal zone's life. We are in the earliest stages of understanding an environment that has had hundreds of millions of years to develop biological complexity in isolation. We have sampled it at a handful of widely separated points, with instruments that capture only what they can physically reach and physically hold. The organisms we have found are remarkable. The organisms we have not found are almost certainly more remarkable still, shaped by evolutionary pressures that shallow water biology gives us no preparation for, following metabolic pathways that may be genuinely novel, living in ecological relationships with other organisms that we have not yet described. Some of them are almost certainly large. Some of them are almost certainly mobile. Some of them are doing things in that darkness, feeding strategies, behavioral patterns, physiological processes that we cannot currently imagine because we have no analogous examples to draw from anywhere else on Earth. 11 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, in the cold and the dark and the crushing pressure, life is doing what life has always done: surviving, adapting, competing, reproducing, evolving. It has been doing this without our knowledge, without our observation, without our cataloging or our naming or our understanding, for longer than our species has existed on this planet. The Mariana Trench is not waiting for us to understand it. It is not pausing its biological processes while we develop better technology. It is simply there, alive in the dark, patient in the way that only something very old and very deep can be patient. The last frontier of biological discovery on this planet is not on a distant moon or in some theoretical future laboratory. It is 11 kilometers below the surface of an ocean we have known about for centuries and explored, even today, almost not at all. The Mariana Trench has been there for 15 million years. It will be there for millions more. And in the sediment at the bottom of the Challenger Deep, in the cold water above it, in the microbial communities living on the chemistry of the subducting plate below it, life continues without us. Life in the dark. Life under pressure. Life that has never needed our observation, our science, or our understanding to persist and flourish in the deepest place on Earth. We arrive late to this story. The story was already very old. And the most important chapters, the ones about what actually lives in the dark, what it does, how it survives, what it knows about chemistry and pressure and time that we have not yet learned. Those chapters are still being written in a language made of biology and geology and deep time, 11 kilometers below the surface, in the place we call the bottom of the world, and which is, in fact, a beginning.